everyone, welcome to my iceloom kitchen. And on the menu today are soft served iceloom cones. This session will have two parts. First part will be the one flavor cone, and I'll show you how to decorate it with sprinkles or any sort of topping you'd like to add. And part two, I'll show you how to make a two flavor swirl cone, which is a slightly different technique. So click on the link below. Check out the recipe page to get the number of bands needed for this creation. After that, come back and let's begin. To make this cone, you'd have to make it in three separate parts. I tried to make it as one piece. Although it's possible to make it as one piece, you don't quite get the nice swirl or curve of the top. And the best way to do it was to make it in separate areas. So we make the cone, we make the tip, and I call this the bump. This bump, so you have this cone has three separate pieces that we combine. Now, if you had wanted a larger cone, all you'd have to do was make two more bumps or three more bumps to make it taller. It would really be up to you. But for this lesson, I'll be showing you how to make the tip and one bump and the cone. And let's start by making the tip. You need your regular loom. Remove the center row. I think it works better if your pegs on the rows are facing opposite sides. Like I have my front facing the right and my back facing the left. You can use your loom hook or a crochet hook. For the start, I'm going to use my crochet hook. Get two flavor bands. Wrap it around your hook twice. Get four more bands. Pull those four bands through. Like that. Now, you get two from one side. Grab two bands. Pull it through. Just on one side. So it looks like that. And you can attach this part first. Down. Get the opposite of that attached set, which is this. Leave the other one on. Grab another two bands. Pull that through. And you can attach that. Now working on the other attached set. Get one end. Another two bands. Pull it through. That way. And that goes here. And get the last one, last end. Another two bands. Pull it through. And you have your first X. Okay, now we start going around, get 2 bands, go around the 4 pegs, now each peg will have 4 bands under, and you're going to just lift those up and over. Push everything down. So after you've done the round on the 4 pegs, we need to extend it 2 more bands. X, 1 here to the left, another 2, exit out here to the right. We're extending it to 6 pegs, another 2, X here, another 2, X here. Now we need to go make a 2 band round on every peg. Again, 2 bands. Push everything down. Make sure. Now we are going to lift all the lower bands under. You're going to pull it over. So all bands under except for those new bands that you just laid out on top. So after you lift everything up and over, every peg should have 4 bands left. Make sure not to take any of those new bands you placed on top. Okay, then push everything down. Now we extend it out again to 8 pegs. So we'll get 2 bands. And X, 1 on the left and 1 on the right. Close it off. Now we go around again, 2 bands. Okay. We again lift everything under those new bands you placed on top. So you're going to leave 4 bands on each peg when you're done. Push everything down. Okay, after the round on 8 pegs, we're going to extend to 10. Another 2 bands. Extend one to the left. Extend one to the right. Close it off. So 10 pegs. Now we're going to lay bands again, 2 bands all around, and pull everything up and over on each peg. So we're going to do this on the 10 pegs. We're going to do the round 3 times, lay bands and lift the lower bands over. So pause your video, finish off 3 rounds. This is round 1. After you lift it up 2 more times, and then unpause when you're done, and we'll resume from there. Okay, so at this point you should have finished 3 rounds on the 10 pegs, and we have to close off this tip. First thing you're gonna do is try to smoothen out every peg so you clearly know where each band is coming from. Smooth it out by just putting your hook through the peg and just running it around. So every peg should have 4 bands. Now you're going to get the 2 lower bands and make sure they're really the 2 lower bands, and you're going to pull them, separate it to double check, and these are my 2 lower bands, and you pull those up and over each peg. So now every peg should have 2 bands. Now we're gonna start from here. You go to the last peg across, go through and pick up the lower of the 2 bands and pull that up and over to this peg. Then you go through this peg, push aside that band you just pulled over, pick up the 2 lower bands left, move it forward. Go through, pick up the 2 lower bands, move it forward. Go through, pick up those 2 lower bands, forward. 2 lower bands, forward. Now with here, pick up those 2 bands, bring it to the other side. Go through, pick up the 2, bring it there, pick up the 2, bring it forward, pick up the 2, bring it forward, pick up the 2, bring it forward. Now you pick up this 1, the one that was left, bring it here, take a single band, put it through here, create a slip knot to tie this off, and help everything off the loom. So it should look a little bit like this. I'm just going to flip it inside out. Fill out your cone tip, your ice cream tip, and you have the top layer of your swirl cone. Okay, if you wanted to make a swirl cone with sprinkles or any sort of topping, like I'm showing you, I'm making another cone, another another swirl top. So I'm redoing this in a different color. And I wanted to show you while I had one here so you could see. So right now I have the X and this is the tip. And you have to sort of map out where you're going to have your sprinkles. I'm using beads and I placed them on my bands, on single bands. You could use wrap bands. To make a wrap band, let's say if you use the wrap band, wrap it around your hook 4 times and then 2 bands, slip it through. There. But for my beads, the reason why I'm only using 1 band is because these beads have a really small hole, so 2 bands wouldn't have fit. So I'd have to still add another band since we use 2 bands each. Now, if I had wanted to place like a sprinkle on this area, which is where I'm going to be placing my bands now, say I wanted one here, then I choose a side where I'd put a sprinkle. Let's say I'll put a sprinkle on every layer of the top before reaching the 10 pegs. So I get my first sprinkle. I'll put you here. Go 2 bands. Now and now we extend out to 6 pegs. And now let's say I want my next sprinkle to be, I can just go in a counterclockwise or a clockwise direction, adding 1 sprinkle per row. or you could add 2 per row. It's really up to you on how many you wanted. So just continue adding the beads till you reach the 10 peg mark, wherever you want to place it. There's no rule where to place everything. I mean, if you, however you want to decorate it is completely up to you. You could actually fill the whole thing up, or you could just scatter it around. Completely up to you. So continue the whole process like I showed you earlier with the plain cone. You can pause this and rewind to double check if you're doing the same thing. But you start from 4 pegs, then slowly expand to 10, and do 10, and then 3 rounds on the 10 peg mark. Now get your loom again. Let's start with the bump. To make the bump, you're going to get 2 bands, and we're going to work with 12 pegs. So 1, 2, 3. So that's 6 here. Close that off. Close that off. Push everything down. Now, just like the other process, you're just going to get 2 bands and you're going to go around. And after you go around, you're going to lift all the lower bands, leaving those new bands that you laid out on top, up and over. And you're going to do that for 5 rounds. So, if you can pause your video again. This is round 1. After you lay down all the bands, lift every peg, all the lower bands up and over. And repeat that 4 more times for a total of 5 rounds. Just unpause after you're done with the 5th round, and we'll resume from there. So we finished 5 rows around the 12 pegs for the bump, and we're going to close this off the same way we closed off the tip portion. Make sure your bands on the pegs are fixed properly. So we're going to lift all lower 2 bands on each peg up and over. After that's done, repeat the same process as earlier. Get the lower band from the inside of this peg. We start here, so the one across. Go in, lift the lower 2 forward, go in, forward, lift, go in, pick up the lower two, move forward, go in, go in, go across, go in, pick up those lower two, move it here, hook through that last peg, create a slip knot, tie it off. Help it off your loom. Now, just lift it up and over, inside out, and you'll have this. So where you have your end, your tie end, this will be the top part of your bump, and this is the lower. So you have your top portion of your cone, like that. So to attach the bump to the tip of the cone, first you have to locate your top part of your bump. The top part is the area where you tied it off, here. And if you actually have extra band left on that tie, we can start using this. So just try and figure out how you want it to look and place it on. I'll do it this way. So you have this inside, you're gonna sew it in. So you can use your loom hook or a crochet hook, and you kind of get, so if you want it to look this way, you get an area here. Get an area from inside, not outside. So maybe like 2 bands, and you just grab that tail and sew it through. And when it's on top, you go to the inside, grab another portion, and take another portion from the inside top part, grab the tail again, and pull it through both. Continue to do that all around until you've attached the top to the bump. If you need to extend your sewing band, all you have to do is get an additional band, pull it through, just create a slip knot at the end so it's longer. So just go around sewing the upper portion down to the bump portion of your swirl top. So we start making the cone, and because we're making 2 cones today, I already made one. I made the cone for the white ice loom with sprinkles. This is how it will look like in the end. It's not finished yet because we still need to add some detail, but we'll get to that later. You'll still need to use some of your flavor colored bands for the cone, and you'll need 3 rows of those. And you start off with the 10 pegs. I already laid down the initial base for the colored bands, so you do your excess around the 10 pegs here. Then you go around 2 bands all around the 10 pegs. So now that these are all laid out, this is row 1, and you're going to lift the 4 lower bands up and over each peg. So we're going to repeat this. Same process, lay the bands around and lift the lower 4 bands up and over in each peg 2 more times after this row 1. So pause your video, repeat this row 2 more times for a total of 3 flavor bands on top of the cone, and come back when you're done. Okay, so we've finished 3 rounds of the flavor for the cone, and now we'll have to extend these 10 pegs out to 14. And so you get 2 cone bands. Now we're going to have to extend and weave the flavors. So take off the flavor bands from this peg, pull your cone bands through, replace one end of the cone bands on that peg that you removed the flavor bands from, and put the other end across the diagonal to extend here. Do the same for the other side. Get 2 cone bands, remove these flavor bands from the peg, pull it through, replace, put one end of your cone bands on the peg you remove the flavor bands from, put the other end on the other extension, that way. Now do the same for the other side. Okay, so your layout should look this way. Now we're going to weave cone bands on these 3 remaining ones. Get 2 bands, take this third peg with the colored bands off, pull it through, one end here, put the other end over. Now 2 more bands, pull through, one end here, hold the other end, pick up these flavor bands and pull that through, so these 2 flavor bands will be sharing the same 2 cone bands, and replace it. So it looks that way. Now repeat same thing on this side. one end here. So all these opposite pegs will have, I'm sorry, all pegs will have 2 bands and these opposite pegs will have 4. Pull it through. One end goes there. Pull that brown band through. There you go. Now we're ready to start doing the cone rows. Now with every peg has the cone color on it. So now we go around 14 pegs, 2 bands, and line up the 14 pegs all around. Go all around, then we're going to lift up and over. This is round 1. On round 1, you're going to lift only 2 bands up and over, except for these 2, you'll be lifting 4 bands up and over. Two bands up and over. This is 4 up and over. This is 2. Same on the other side, all 2 bands, except for this, which will have 4. So after this row, every peg will have 4 bands. Now you're going to repeat this process 4 more times for a total of 5 rows. So pause your video and come back after you're done doing this 4 more times. So I'll see you after you're done with the 5th row. Okay, so we've now finished 5 rounds on the top part of the cone, and so we are in this area, and now we have to decrease from the 14 pegs down to 10 pegs. So what you do is go to this corner first, smoothen it out so you know exactly where each band is coming from, and you get the top 2, and I see the other end of these 2 bands is coming from here, so you will put it across it here, and the other end of these 2 bands coming from here, so we're going to put it across here. Do the same for the other side. Get the top 2, and it other end is coming from here, so this goes here, and this one goes here. Let's go to this area, 2, other end comes from here. So it splits here. Okay, one came off, so careful. This one goes here. Top 2 coming from here, so this goes here. This goes here. So now we're down to 10 pegs. Now we're going to go around again. Push that all down. So after you line the top with 2 bands all around, same process, you're going to get the lower bands and lift them up and over. These, in this first row, these 6 pegs will have 4 to lift up and over, while these corner pegs will have 8. So you have to really push them down so they don't get tangled. Okay, this is row 1. Make sure you get. Okay, now go around each peg and take all the lower bands up and over. And you have to repeat the process, laying the bands around and lifting up and over. 6 more times after this row for a total of 7 rows. So after row 1, every time you go around, there should only be 4 bands to lift up and over on each peg. So finish up this row 1, pause your video, and after row 1, do it 6 more times, and I'll meet you after your 7th row. Okay, so we finished our 7 rows on the 10 pegs, and we have one more row, but instead of double bands, you'll be getting single bands and doubling it up on itself. And that's what you're going to be laying around. So these you lay around single bands doubled on itself around the 10 pegs, and then we're going to do a last up and over. So from the 10 pegs, we're now going to go down to 8. We're going to start decreasing from this peg. Take the top 2 Other end comes from here, so place it here. Take this last, other end comes from this side. Stretch it carefully. You don't want it to snap. Now we decrease this peg. Top two comes from here. So move it here. Lower two comes from here. Move it there. Push everything down, and we're going to get ready to close it. But first we have to seal the hole. X from here to here. 2 bands. X from here to here. Another 2 bands. X from here to here. Straight down. Straight down. There. Now we're going to lift all lower 4 bands up and over. You should be left with 2 bands on the outer 4 pegs and 4 on these inner 4. So we only want 2 bands left for each. So on these 4, fix and check which are the lower 2 bands. And that's what you bring up and over. So you're left with 2 bands per peg. And let's seal this. So go to this peg, go inside and take the lower band over here. So after you put that in, you go in, pick up the lower 2 bands, bring it over, bring it forward to the peg beside. Do the same for that. Go in, pick up the lower 2 bands, forward, go in, into the peg to the other side, in, pick up the 2, bring it forward, in, bring that forward. Now pick up that single band, bring it here, and you're gonna tie this off. Help your cone off the loom. Now you need to turn your cone inside out. The bottom area should be flat so it can stand. Okay, so now we have our two cones. This next step is optional. You can leave your cone as is, you can leave it squishy, or you can fill it up a little bit. I have some fiber fill. It's what you put in stuffed toys, or you can put cotton balls or tissue, anything to keep it firmer. It's not gonna make it hard. It just so it won't flatten. It like this can flatten completely. This one just has the spring to it. But well, this is for my daughter and she likes it with the filling. So if you do put filling, you don't have to put so much. Just maybe like this amount be fine. But completely optional, you do not need to fill it up with anything if you don't want to. This was just by special request. Okay, so before we get to the part where we have to attach this cone, we're going to finish up the details on our body, our cone body. So you'll need a few more bands. Not this much, I'm just bringing it out. Your hook, crochet hook, or your loom hook. I'm more comfortable using my crochet hook, so I hope you don't mind. So if you notice, if you see these two dents on the sides, that was where we decreased from our 14 pegs to our 10 here. And I wanted to create a rim to go around this way. In my initial design, I actually incorporated the rim when I was making the cone, but it just wouldn't come out right. It just looked much better when it was sewed in. So it'll have this type of effect after. So I'll teach you how to do that part now. Get two bands. Now you pick a spot and you have to mark your area. So I see my bump here. So I'm going to stay within this line. I'm going to sew my rim within these lines here. So I'm here and I pick these two. You don't have to get, you can get all four or you can just pick two, really up to you. Grab two bands. Pull it through. Like you're creating a slip knot. Grab the other end. So you have the bump from your actual cone and you created another bump. And that's what we're actually going to do, create like bumps to even out the side. Go to the next line, then pull it through the end. But instead of creating a knot, it's like we're going to twist it around each one. Go to the next. Now, if you feel like it's getting a little short, you can just extend this. 2 more bands. It's like you attach a slip knot in the end. So just continue going around until you get back to where you started. Just make sure to stay within the same line, twisting that band all around to create a rim on your cone. So pause your video and I'll see you when you get back to your starting point. So I've finished adding the rims on my cones. I noticed that depending on the color, it's more visible on the lighter cones more than the darker ones. Now, if you feel like you can do another round, go ahead. It's up to you and how you feel that your cone looks, but I will probably go back to that later on after I finish attaching it, just to see how I feel. So now let's attach the top. So I'm to fix my fiber fill inside. See how you want it to look. Just kind of eyeball the look of your cone, and I think this will work for me this way. So let's get your hook, crochet hook or loom hook, your call. Choose a portion inside and up here. So I'm going to loop one band up, hold it, then I'm going to choose another portion down here, take one end of that single band, put it through, take the other end and create a slip knot. Now you have your sewing band, and like how we sewed on the top, the tip and the bump, we're going to sew this top portion down to the cone. So we've finished attaching the top to the cone. You can squish it, we can reshape that later on, but I want to show you one last step, which will give us the extended ice cream edge over the cone. So I hope you don't mind, I'll be shifting to the white swirl cone because it'll be easier for you to see versus the pink with the brown. So we'll be working with 3 bands at a time. Now, if you look at the sides, you're going to place your hook or your crochet hook or your loom hook through these white bands that are part of the cone. the one that gave the transition to the cone color and the flavor color. And you're gonna pull those 3 bands through. Another 3 bands. Pull those 3 bands through that first set. Take the other end. You're doing a chain basically all around, but you're not gonna attach it every single time. It's like every fourth set, or every fourth or third, really up to you. I'll do it every fourth because I don't want it to look like a tight cone. I want it to look fluffy. So I don't mind it being loose. So that's my third. So I'm entering my fourth set. Yeah, this is my fourth. So next I'm going to include another part here. Pull that through. Continue doing the chain of 3 colors all around. Pause your video and unpause it when you get back to where you started. So we've finished creating the chain around the rim of our cone. You can squeeze it, reshape it, tighten some of the bands to bring in the bump or the top closer to the cone, add more bands to the rim to make it thicker, however you want to shape your cone. Watch out for part 2, where I'll show you how to make 2 flavors of this twist cone, and this time we'll make it on a waffle cone. So there you have it, and I hope you like it. Enjoy your ice loom.